TitleMatchNetwork.com.
Yes, I was a big fan of wrestling growing up. This is redundant. I say this all the time, but I don't know if everybody knows it. But the first memory I have, not just of wrestling, just the first memory I have is Roddy Piper smashing a coconut over Jimmy Snuka's head. And I realized that like a young age, that's all I ever wanted to do. I never wanted to be a fireman or an electrician, or I never wanted to walk dogs or be an astronaut or anything like that. I figured he was like a millionaire too at the time, which is probably false, but I just figured these two huge guys were probably millionaires, and he was smashing fresh produce over one guy's head, and I was like, that's me. That's what I want to do. So that's pretty much how it all began, how the first seed was planted.
So WWF was your first company that you started watching?
Well, yeah, I'm from Chicago, so I never really got a whole lot of NWA stuff. I was, WWE was a Northeast company, and WWF, I hate calling it WWE. They were like a Northeast company, obviously, and NWA was more Southern, so I got WWF. Occasionally I would watch NWA and stuff like that, but even back then, like I would turn it on, and I was a big fan of like the Sunday show because it would just be like tons of wrestling.
Right.
Like I liked Arn Anderson and all that other stuff, but I would always change the channel and Lex Luger came on.
Huh.
Even at a young age, I knew.
What was some of your favorite stuff growing up?
I was a really big Shawn Michaels mark because of his work rate. Because being a fan and not knowing what the hell work rate meant, there was this guy having spectacular matches, and I recognized the fact that even though they said he was 220 pounds, that he was really like 175 or 180, and he was the guy having the most dynamic matches at the time. I remember even when he was tagging with Jannetty, the Rockers, they were doing stuff that was just awesome. I was also, when I originally, started watching wrestling, like I said, Roddy Piper and the British Bulldogs. I was a huge British Bulldogs mark, to the point where like I wanted to be a British Bulldog like for Halloween every year. Yeah, and then once the Bulldogs were gone, it's funny how wrestling works. It's like once they were gone out from the WWF, it's like I thought they didn't exist anymore. And then years later, I come to find out that Dynamite is the man, in Japan and all that other stuff. But those are like the main guys that always did it for me.
Now you ended up actually getting into the business through a guy by the name of Danny Dominion, was it? And Ace Steel?
Ace Steel and Danny Dominion and Kevin Quinn trained me at the Steel Domain in Chicago. I went there, 98, I think. I have a horrible memory. And I will preface going to the Domain with I will regale you with now my tales of backyard wrestling, which I think everybody does who gets into the business. It's just a thing you do. And me and my friends goofed off and had fun and filmed crap we did, and just had fun, stuff like that. And the Chicago wrestling scene was so bad. Like I would go to indie shows, and just the state of wrestling in Chicago was so abysmal. I mean, there would be guys like firefighter Jim who's so grossly out of weight, there's no way he's even a fireman, and just like indie shows are so bad. It was like we got the mentality that like what we were doing was better, and it was like really low rent, like bad public access stuff. Just a bunch of kids goofing around in the backyard and stuff like that, but somehow we got a ring and we ran a show, and nobody was trained, and it was god awful. And after the first show, I watched it and I said, this is horrible. And since I got out of the group, I was the only one who actually wanted to be a wrestler. It was just something to do for everybody else. That's when I went to the Domain, because I was serious about it. So yeah, there you go, if anybody wanted to know that. It is a shoot interview, so I will speak the truth.
What was the training like?
Well, since the state of wrestling in Chicago was at a piss poor level, and when I would go to these indie shows and stuff like that, I could not control myself, and I would make fun of everything I saw and yell at the top of my lungs and stuff like that. Pretty much everybody in the Chicago wrestling scene hated me, And Danny and Ace, they took me in. Ace likes to now say that he saw potential in me, but I just think they wanted to beat the shit out of me. And they did. Training was very, very tough. Kevin Quinn especially would beat the crap out of me. And you gotta, like, they all had different stuff going on. Quinn had his own thing going on, and he was more of like a helper. Danny and Ace were the ones who had the big vested interest in the school. And Ace, Ace had his job. So like some days he was there, some days Danny was there, other times, Quinn was there. So it was like, it's kind of like a 3 different perspective on how to train and what the business was about and stuff like that. And Quinn was way more Japanese influenced than Danny and Ace. Ace was a lot more technical than Quinn or Dominion, and Danny wound up teaching me more what not to do in the business, basically through his actions, than he ever really taught me, like in the ring and stuff like that. A lot of the time now, I don't even really credit him with, if people ask me where I trained, I won't even say his name. And that's not just me being disrespectful. If it was a perfect world, me and Danny would still be friends and we'd still talk and stuff like that. But there's a stigma that comes with his name. And, when you're trying to get into places, even mentioning his name sometimes gets you funny looks, and, it might not get me booked. But lots of running, lots of cardio for the training, lots of bumps. I remember one particular time when I first started working shows, it was like hell. You'd have to, show up early, like Friday or Saturday morning at the school. You take the ring down. The school is on Irving Park Road, which is a 1-lane highway. You'd have the truck parked on the street. You'd have to unload the ring, put it in the truck, drive the truck, 4 or 5 hours to like upper Wisconsin, unload the truck, haul the ring up 3 flights of stairs, set the ring up, wrestle if you were lucky, take the ring down, 3 flights of stairs again, put it back in the truck, drive it back, and then have to set it up usually that night again. So there's like me in Cabana when he joined up a couple months later, wound up doing like 36-hour days, just crazy shit like that. But one particular time we didn't put the ring up, so when we got there, Quinn just said, just put the mats, foam mats about maybe an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch thick, and just put those on the floor and we'll just bump on those. Of course, he didn't take any bumps because Kevin Quinn's a smart man, but I was learning and paying my dues, so I had to take many, many bumps on pretty much just the floor. But, I remember Quinn Quinn was a perfectionist. That's why to this day, I love him. I swear I did like 700 arm drags one day because I couldn't get it right. Always going off to the side. Even to this day, sometimes I do it. But he was just repetitive. If you didn't do it right, you had to do it again. The first day I met Quinn, he said, "Hi, I'm Kevin Quinn." I said, "Hi," and Phil. He just grabbed my arm. He put me in a cobra clutch and suplexed me right on my head. Huh. He said, "How'd that feel?" And before I can even say anything, he said, "This is a tiger suplex," and grabbed me. And just,
TitleMatchNetwork.com